My grandfather, Saul Foreman, was the first one in the Peter Luger picture, and he had 3 daughters, 2 of which were in the business, Amy Rubenstein and my mom, Marilyn Spire. When I came into the business, it was my grandmother, my grandfather, my aunt, and my mother. And then I guess over 10 years ago, these guys came in. So Dan is my sister's son, so I'm his aunt. And David is Amy's grandson. Got it?
Saul Foreman was Jody's grandfather, my and David's great-grandfather. He passed away in 2001, so I was 10 years old. But, I have very rich memories of him as a child. Tough guy, but very loving, very interesting. He dropped out of high school to light street lamps before starting the factory across the street with some of his other siblings, which was Foreman family. So they make an assortment of metal giftware. And the reason that he ended up purchasing this in 1950 was because this was going out of business and he needed a place to take his clients. So the story was that when business was good, he would have 2 steaks a day and he would just be coming over here all the time and he needed a place to take them. He bought it in 1950. As production started to go overseas, that business kind of wound down and this became the main business.
My earliest memory of Peter Luger was probably coming here with my family. We would drive from Manhattan, which was rare for us to drive anywhere for dinner. But going over the Williamsburg Bridge was always really special, and I would always eat so much here that my parents would stock up the minivan with plastic bags because it would usually come out on the drive home.
My earliest memory of Peter Luger is actually going to the Great Neck location after a US Open and seeing Pete Sampras there celebrating his win. I thought that was pretty cool.
My earliest memory of Peter Luger's, in terms of the family experience, was my grandmother used to take me to the meat market off the West Side Highway in Manhattan at age 8. I remember thinking, this is wild, this is crazy, and I actually became a vegetarian for a couple of months, and the family was devastated. That's the worst thing you could be in our family. I was so sort of shook up by it. We were a very close-knit family. Beyond work, we get together almost once a week, just the whole extended family for dinner. And it was very important to me to be able to be close to my family. I loved being with my mother. I loved being with my aunt. My grandparents were amazing people. They had unbelievable work ethic. It was really a privilege to be able to work with people who have such a feeling of pride. It was ironically never about this is a business, we're here to make money. It was about this is what we do, and if we're gonna be a steakhouse, we're gonna be the best steakhouse, and we're gonna learn every aspect about how to make that possible. And my grandfather really started from the basics, and it was just so amazing to have time with that generation, and that's how I got involved. I never thought as a kid I would be involved in Peter Luger's. Saul Foreman was always an entrepreneur, so even though he didn't have a high school degree, he was always crafting things. We found old patents that he had for creating different cocktail shakers and different kind of giftware. We discovered those when we were redoing a building across the street. He always had a mind for business, and when it came to Peter Luger's, he really loved meat, and he loved this place in particular. And that basic love for the place really pushed him to just seek out what are the most important aspects of getting the best meat. And he really got to the bottom of it by having my grandmother Marcia spend a couple years with a retired grader from the USDA. And it was really about education. How do you know what's good meat? Let's talk to the people from the USDA. Let them teach us. How do they grade? What do they look for? And this was really one of the most important aspects of us becoming who we are. My grandmother was this beautiful, elegant woman. She had her hair in a bun. She wore a fur coat. She used to come to the meat market in the early hours. As the prostitutes were going home, my grandmother was getting out of the car. It was always a traditionally very male area, and the guys had nothing but pure respect for her because she wanted to learn how we're going to do this, and she was open-minded. She didn't care about getting dirty. She would put on her white coat over her fur coat. She'd put on gloves. She'd put on a hat and galoshes. And she got in there, she got dirty, and she got the job done.
You look at 4th generation family business, we get along remarkably well. And I think we all really fit into our own niche, which is not to say that anyone is left to their own devices ever. There is no decision that is made in any part of the businesses that is not examined by everybody and really argued over, scrutinized. But I think we all give each other enough space and respect what each other are doing enough that everyone has a real role here. And that's a huge part of what makes us successful as a family. One of the greatest things we've been able to do is expand our restaurant and expand our reach. But a really intrinsic part of that is being able to distill what you actually do really well, because then you can package it and bring it somewhere else.
We've pushed forward in a lot of ways that I think we're all really proud of. And I think you see how that reflects in Japan. I think you hopefully see how that reflects in Vegas and hopefully here. And we want there to be a certain level across the board at all of our restaurants, especially when you come to the original. We're really known for steak for two, which is considered porterhouse. We only select USDA prime beef, which is dry aged in-house. A steak for two or a porterhouse is one side you have the filet mignon, on the other side you have the New York strip or sirloin. And we will serve it sliced, and we like to give the guest a piece of the filet and a piece of the sirloin. Once the kitchen receives an order for a steak for two, they're gonna select a porterhouse. They're going to heavily salt it and put it onto the broiler. Once on the broiler, they're gonna cook it below your temperature, your desired temperature, and once that's at that stage, they're gonna slice it. They're gonna put it on a large platter that's gonna come out to your table, a little clarified butter, and they're gonna take the steak from the broiler onto your platter. They're then gonna cut off the filet and the sirloin from the bone and cut it into about finger width strips. Once that's done, you're gonna have that steak put back in the broiler and finished to order. About a minute before your steak's ready, your waiter is gonna be paged. Every waiter wears a pager, and they have to pick up the steak once it's directly out of the broiler, sizzling hot, and they're gonna whisk it to your table, and you should hear it before you see it.
It's fun to watch the very well-mannered people start out very daintily cutting, and by the end, it's like they're gnawing on the bone and you see the juices of their mouth, that's how you know you picked a great steak.
There's definitely a quintessential meal. I'd say you've got to start with a tomato and onion salad, which is really just sliced tomatoes and onions. The best way to do that is you get it with bacon, with our extra thick cut bacon. Follow that with one of our salads. I think the most iconic would probably be the wedge, just because it's pretty epic. After that, some of the guys who I'm always very impressed by, they start out as an appetizer with a lamb, which is like just kind of a wild meal. But doing a lamb appetizer is a very strong move. Either lamb.
It's a nice mid-course.
Yeah, it's a nice mid-course. That or shrimp cocktail. The crab cake is really, really phenomenal. Then obviously the main event is the steak for 1, 2, 3, or 4. Our rib is also pretty incredible, so that is not a sleeper. And then you gotta have sides on that, which is German hash, French fried potatoes, cream spinach, mushrooms, all incredible items. And then you finish off with a holy cow sundae, and that's your Luger.
Mitschlag.
And then we wheel you out.
Yeah. When you come in here, it's a tradition that goes back 4 generations for our family, and then back to 1887. And we want it to not just be like a dinner, but a historical experience too.
Very, very committed to the business, and we still hold that Saul Foreman mentality of we have to be the best, we have to buy the best. Our wait staff are true professionals. They're really responsible for the entire customer experience when they sit down. They know their timing exactly right, and a lot of it's from experience, and many of them are here for years and years and years. We've had waiters that were here for 50 years. It's a career for them, it's a profession, and they're exquisite at what they do, from the way they put the steak down to the way they serve you. They're really spectacular. The cash-only policy is really, it's been here since the beginning, but my grandfather Saul really had this brilliant marketing mind. He was like, let's make our own Peter Luger card, and people will have this card in their wallet, and they'll open the card and it'll remind them to come to the restaurant, and it has this feeling of you're a member of a club. We have a fair amount of credit card holders. I think we're up to,
It's
90?
about 100,000.
Yeah, 99. Yeah, it's almost at 100,000.
Ultimately, Peter Luger is a combination of a lot of love, effort, and care that we put into it as a family that I think then reflects in our staff, who we have family members, husbands and wives, fathers and sons. There's such a familial aspect here, and I think when guests come in for the first time, the 100th time, we've guests who come in every week. We want them to feel like they're a part of the family. We want them to feel comfortable. We want them to receive really the best steak they'll ever have. And to simplify it, all this work that we put in, our staff puts in, we just hope the guests leave happier when they leave than when they walked in.